Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guest. And I got to tell you something, people. I graduated high school and college both in the 80s, and I used to listen to a radio station, well, I still do when I moved back from LA, called WMMR. And they used to have such great Philadelphia music. They had the Hooters, they had the A's, they had Tommy Conwell, the Young Rumblers, they had Robert Hazard and the Heroes. And that tradition still goes on because my guest is a Philly musician, but he's touring the country now. And he's also a fellow Cherry Hill East Cougar. And from Low Cut Connie, my guest is Adam Weiner. How you doing, Adam?
Doing good. Happy to be here with you, my pal.
Dude, I got to tell you, I listened to the album Living in USA. I love it. I love it. And also, I love that your video has an Ortlieb sign in it, which people, if you don't know, I don't even know, where did you get an Ortlieb sign for a video? Because people, Ortlieb's is a legendary beer in Philadelphia. They make no more.
Well, there's a club in Fishtown, Brewerytown area that is now called Ortlieb's after the beer, and they've maintained some of the Ortlieb stuff there. And so that good eye, that is an old Ortlieb's beer sign, and a lot of people have commented on it. It's pretty cool.
So let's talk about the album. It's getting great reviews. It's funny, you go to your website and it pops up that it's in such demand that you have to wait 5 to 7 days to get it shipped, which has to be that must be great as an artist because in this day and age when people don't go crazy over albums anymore, this must make you feel great.
It's pretty cool, and this is my ninth, I believe, studio album. And the response over the last week has been incredible. It's been our biggest album launch I've ever had. And we run our own little independent record label uh, based here in Philly, South Jersey area. And we do all the merch and record fulfillment ourselves. And we've just never had this many orders. So we are definitely running behind.
So what do you think? Why are people going crazy over it? Is it because it's a protest album because there's a lot going on in the world? I saw your Facebook post the other day, which was great when you said just get out there. If you're a leader, go lead. If you're an activist, go act, do everything. So what do you think is making it resonate so much with the people that there's this overwhelming response?
I think people are starved for real music played by real people that has heart and soul that makes them feel something. It's a rare thing these days. Um, so much music that's out there is so digital. Obviously, we have this issue with AI not only creeping in, with AI artists, but a lot of artists are using AI and all kinds of digital manipulation in the studio for their music. And my music is so old school, Steve. I'm using tape, I'm recording a group of people in a room live, the way the Rolling Stones did it in 1972. And the songs are very direct. You can dance to them, you can tap your foot to them. They've got a message. I think it's just refreshingly old school and refreshingly soulful rock and roll, which is so, so, so out of fashion for 2026, but a lot of people are responding to it.
Well, it's funny, you said Rolling Stones. Get Down actually gives me that early Rolling Stones vibe. The song Get Down, it just has that fun vibe. Now, who were some of your influences? Because I also hear, my favorite song is Human Condition. I hear Early Bad Company. That's just me. I hear the beginning. So I want to know who are some of your influences? Who did you grow up listening to and who has
Yeah.
resonated with you as an artist?
I like the Bad Company reference. They're a great band, and the band Free before them, which is also Paul Rogers, really cool band. Listen, there's so many different artists that have influenced me, songwriting, production, vocally. But for this record, I was really thinking about the Rolling Stones, Creedence Clearwater Revival, The Replacements, Sly and the Family Stone, some of my favorite bands, and the way that they could dial in their sound, which was a very American rock and roll sound, or roots, blues, boogie based rock and roll sound. Um, and you know, also put a message across. Because you think about Creedence Clearwater Revival, those songs are so catchy. And after 55 years plus, those songs are still resonating. If you go on to streaming platforms, of all the bands from the 60s, the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, all the big bands, Creedence has as many or more streams than any other band. There's something about Creedence Clearwater Revival. They have multiple songs with billions of streams. And I think there's just songs of theirs that are just really continuing to strike a nerve. When you hear Fortunate Son, it feels like it was written today, I feel like. And so that's what I'm trying to do as I'm trying to make modern classics, if that makes sense.
Well, it does. And it's funny, even like Can't Be Wrong reminds me of a song you would hear like walking into the Springfield and Sea Isle. Like it has that sort of that beachy sound. And you're right, we are missing that because I look back to, I graduated high school in 82 and college in 86, and the shore, everyone went and listened to
Steve,
music.
hold on one second.
Look at the door.
Give me, yeah, give me 30 seconds. Sorry, buddy.
All right. No, I'm saying it gives you that beach sound because that used to be the day. You go back and you come off the beach and there'd be a band, and it'd be a cover band or it'd be an original band. They'd be doing both, and that's missed now. It's like I used to sit there. Every place had music. Every place used to have it. Now, in South Jersey, you're like, there's no music anymore, and it's amazing and
No.
it's funny because the musicians are out there because Philadelphia has always been such a breeding ground for great musicians. As a musician, why do you think that is happening?
I mean, we're now 40 years into that process of the death of live music on that level. It was like switching to DJs. And now it's not even a DJ, it's just an algorithm playing music in a club. It's a shame, but I'm old enough that I got a taste of it down at the shore. Whether it be Atlantic City, Ocean City, Wildwood, Asbury Park, I got a taste of that Jersey Shore rock sound, which always had a saxophone in it. And it's just something you hear it and you know what it is if you're from this area, and obviously people around the world know it through Bruce Springsteen. But there's a Jersey Shore sound and it's verging on extinction. I'm a Jersey guy, and you're totally right that we tried to capture that with that song. And a bunch of people, including talking to people in Germany, overseas, they say it sounds like New Jersey, you know.
So what made you get into music? You're a Cherry Hill East guy. I think you're the second Cherry Hill East guy. The other on my show is Ellie Honig, who's now on CNN. He's a Cherry Hill East guy. I think he's in between our age. Cherry Hill East isn't. You don't think of music. When I went to East, you thought of doctors and lawyers. I ended up going to stand-up comedy. People are like, "What are you doing? You have a college degree. Why are you doing this?" But what made you go to what? Did you always want to play music? I mean, what were you like as a kid?
Yeah, I was a shy kid socially who was just obsessed with performing. I was just obsessed with music, obsessed with being on stage. Like I was shy in class, but I was the star of all the school plays. And I, in high school, I started bands and we did Battle of the Bands. And I did poetry club, I did photography club, drama. I was in the choir. I was not, as much as I like sports, I was not born to play sports. I was born to be surrounded by art. And I remember being in the Battle of Bands in high school. And again, I was very shy and mild-mannered every day. But I got on stage and I was the lead singer of this group. And in the middle of a song, I yelled to the crowd, if you scream loud enough, I'll take my shirt off. And they did, and I did. And the next day, I remember all these people coming up to me, girls, talking to me and being like, they were just amazed. Who is that guy? And I was like, this is for me. Like this is where I need to be. Um, and I'm a student of the game. Like when I hear David Bowie or Prince or Stevie Wonder, the true greats, I am like, I want to learn how they did it. What made them great? Why is this album different than that album? How did they challenge themselves? And I set the bar like that's the bar. I'll never reach that bar, but that's the bar I'm reaching towards, you know? And I notice that a lot of people around me set the bar lower, which is fine. But for me, I've always really, really been reaching to a high bar. Like I want to do the best music, put on the best show that I can put on, and I want this album to be better than the one before it, and I want this tour to be better than the one before it. And so I think being a student of the game and always learning has been part of the spice of doing this as a performer. Just truly, truly devoted to trying to get better at the craft.
Now, how do you get better at the craft in performing? I mean, I know for me, when I first started doing comedy, I was nervous, was the thing. I still get nervous. I don't go on stage much anymore, but it was years. Like I would go out in LA and people go, "Oh wow, you must have worked this." Yeah, I was on the road for 8 years. I don't really do it much, but it comes back to you. So I was flexing that muscle. How do you flex the muscle? Because you do put on a great show. And you can't perform every night. You have a tour coming up, which I want to talk about because you're playing at the Troubadour. You're playing at the Casbah, which I used to go to when I lived in San Diego, down in Kettner. But how do you flex that muscle? How do you get stronger? Because you, even in a rehearsal, if you're rehearsing your live show, you still aren't encapsulating the audience. And I know you go crazy on stage and you give all your energy. So how do you get better as a frontman if when you really can't practice, like in comedy, you can go out every night and get on stage. For a musician, you can't go out and get on stage with the band every night.
Well, it is like stand-up comedy. Um, you need to get your 10,000 hours. And my recommendation to young artists, young performers, and I would say this to stand-up comedians as well as musicians, whether you like it or not, you need to get in front of hostile audiences. If you're a stand-up comedian, the true greats of stand-up comedy, they didn't come right out of the gate killing every night. They had to learn how to kill an audience. They had to bomb dozens of times before they hit once. If you read, Steve Martin has an amazing book called Born Standing Up. That's all about his stand-up career before his film career. And it's unbelievable how much he bombed. It's unbelievable how badly he was doing with stand-up comedy, but he was obsessed. He was obsessed. I've got to learn how to win. And being a performer in a band, it's the same thing. You need to perform for people who are not your fans. You need to get up in front of all kinds of different people from different demographics, different walks of life, and different levels of hostility towards you. And that is actually how you will learn to command a stage and develop what I call stage IQ. Learning how do you make this group of people feel the way you want them to feel. And you learn by doing. Most people won't see it through because for one reason or another, that path will throw them off. And maybe it's the hostile audiences that most people won't be able to take it. Um, Getting metaphorical tomatoes thrown at you, but you got to go through it. Unfortunately, a lot of artists today don't go through it because they develop a following online and they wait until they have fan base online and then they tour for that fan base. So they skip the step of ever performing for non-fans. But I think if you're going to have a long career, decades long, you need that skill. You need that skill of performing in front of unsympathetic audiences.
It is. No, give me a story of an unsympathetic audience that has stuck out with you, because we all have a story. I remember I was the feature act at Garbage in DC, and Dave Chappelle was the opener. He's 16th. Feature act. It's a cakewalk, 30 minutes in the middle. Man, he blew me off the stage so bad at 16. And I walked out of the bar, the club, with like my tail between my legs. And I was so nervous to come back the next night because I'm like, I ate shit so bad. And I had a great set. So I got a little cocky and then on the late show, and I just died. And it was hard. That drive home, you feel awful. But give me one of your hell gigs that just really got in your head for a little bit, because it does affect us, because we know this stuff works, but for some reason we don't click that night.
Oh, there's there's so many, and I hope to write a book at some point. Um, Kind of like the rock and roll version of Steve Martin's book, because I feel as much as my success part of my career is interesting, it's a really interesting story, especially because I've done it DIY, totally do it yourself. Continues to be an interesting story. The part of my story for years and years where I was doing poorly, I think is more interesting. And I had quite a few years of misadventures. But when I was in my middle 20s, um, we used to book shows through MySpace, and there was a rockabilly event happening in Cincinnati. Well, really, the town across from Cincinnati, which is Kentucky, um, Newport, Kentucky. I was invited to play this rockabilly thing, and I drove all the way from Philadelphia to Cincinnati. And that at that point in my life, Steve, if somebody offered me a gig in Alaska for $50, I would have found a way to go to Alaska. I mean, I was obsessed. And I got up at this thing, everybody dressed like, greasers and bobby socks kind of thing, which I wasn't really. I was sort of, but not really on the money. And I sat down at the piano and I started to do my music, which was not rockabilly. And by the end of the first song, there was a guy yelling, and I couldn't hear what he was yelling. And I start the next song and I hear him go, "Hey, asshole, get the fuck off the stage." And I didn't know how to handle it. I was like, I just ignored it. So I do another song. "Hey, asshole. I say get the fuck off the stage. You hear me?" And everybody is like so awkward. And I didn't know how to deal with it. I had no, I didn't have that crowd work thing yet. Uh, Third song. "Asshole, shut the fuck up." And I just said, well, that's definitive. Like, tell me how you really feel. It was a total bomb. I ended my set early. Very few people talked to me. I had to sit there the rest of the night. This guy and his friends continued to heckle me and make fun of me the rest of the night, even when I was just hanging in the audience. They called me a couple choice names. And I was supposed to stay at this guy's house who booked me. And it was a long night. I mean, I stayed up talking to him and he was like, "Look, I'm really sorry. I hope you feel like this trip was worthwhile in some way." And I drove all the way back to Philly the next day and I felt a feeling I'd never felt before. Um, I felt defeated, but I wanted a do-over. And I was replaying it in my mind of what I could have said, right? Oh, look at this fucking, hey, are you part of the show? Then why don't you shut your fucking mouth and you get up here and sing your, I don't know, something. I was like, maybe I should have done, and I wanted a do-over. And I then booked this little tour of little divey bars just to practice. I gotta wash this away. And that tour led to the next tour, which led to the next one to improve upon the last one. And that was over 20 years ago. It was a series of gigs and tours, and it's never stopped. The stages got bigger. And by the way, Steve, the guy who booked me for that show when I got heckled, he's in a band that opened for us recently in Cincinnati, and we laughed about this whole thing. He remembered the whole situation.
That's a great story. And that's you kept with it. Now, I want to know though, you went from Cherry Hill. When did you start getting on the road? When did you get the where people could book you? Because it takes time. I mean, you have to get out to the clubs. We said there's not like the scene it used to be. When did you start getting into the groove? After you graduated East, what did you do to get into the music business?
2000, well, 2000, early 2000s through 2006-ish. I was living in New York City mostly and playing piano in bars and that kind of thing in New York and a little bit Philly. But 2006 to 2010 is when I start touring. But Steve, when I say touring, I'm touring at the absolute bottom of the food chain. Meaning, if I played a gig in Omaha, Nebraska, I was going to play at the only bottom of the barrel place that would have me open for somebody else, you know? Uh, Anybody, a potluck dinner, if they said you can come and play and just have dinner, an old age home, gay bars, colleges. I did this anarchist punk squat houses. I mean, you name it, anybody that would have me. And that got me into quote unquote the business. I wasn't making fans really. Um, but then I met these guys and they wanted to book me in England. And I took the trip over to England. I did some shows. And that led to me doing some shows in Germany and France and Scotland. And uh, I started to go overseas and I would again play to these clubs and actually some of those clubs got nicer for me. But in 2010, I realized that although I'd had a lot of adventures, that my career wasn't really going anywhere. And it was time to settle down. And I took a teaching job, uh, full time, and I was ready to basically play music on the weekends in the summer. And I asked my friends who were also teachers, hey, why don't we do this little record? Why don't we get together and have a wild weekend? We'll record, we'll drink, and it'll be like a last hurrah before we all go back to our teaching jobs in next month. And that little fuck around weekend became the first Low Cut Connie album. And once I heard that record, we were finished in 3 days. I was like, this is something special. I mean, and it's crazy to be sitting here 16 years later, and now it's my full-time job. It was intended to be my last little fun project. before becoming a civilian. And there's something instructive about that too. It's just like when you do something just for fun, it's often the best thing that you do.
Now, what's also great about you is you're very resilient. I want to talk about the pandemic because the funny thing is during the pandemic, you had the your what was it,
Tough cookies.
cookies. And it's funny because during the pandemic, I talked to a lot of musicians who a lot of them were glad they weren't going on the road. They were getting used to being time with their family, but then they started recording at home. Tell me about Tough Cookies and how that really it got you a bigger it got you a bigger audience.
It did. I never expected. I became like a D-list late night TV host. I I was sitting there the first week of quarantine, and my publicist and my manager at the time, they said, "You're so funny, you're so entertaining. Why don't you just go live on your cell phone and keep your fans entertained? Do something." I'd never done anything like that. So we went live on a cell phone in my spare bedroom, and we had 4 or 5 thousand people watching, which was shocking to me. So I said, I'll do it again in 2 days. And there's no plan. I'm playing any song that comes to my mind, being funny, being crazy, took my clothes off. I mean, it was doing everything. In the second show, we had 40,000 people. Uh, but more important was who was watching because people start sending us messages and photos of them watching my show. And there were a lot of nurses who were watching Tough Cookies in the hospital. And this is hazmat suit COVID time. And they were showing this broadcast to the staff in the hospital and some of these ICU patients at the worst part of quarantine. Uh, we all thought this quarantine was going to last a couple weeks. We didn't think it was going to be a year or more. And when I saw these nurses and frontline workers watching the show, I said on air, I said, I will do this until this is over. If it's meaningful to you guys, if it makes you feel good, I will do this. And we did 101 episodes. I covered over 600 songs. And by the end, I mean, we had people in countries around the world watching. I had interviewed Rock and Roll Hall of Fame guests. I had been named Pandemic Person of the Year by the New Yorker. It was life-changing. I made a lot of new fans, but more importantly, um, I showed people a different side of what I could do. Because, like you, I come from a comedy, like I never did stand-up comedy, but I come from a funny Jewish, no filter New Jersey family, and I have that side, and it was fun to get to act and be funny and be a host. And it was an artistic challenge, and it gave me a project to do, and it gave a lot of my fans a lifeline of something to keep them going throughout a very difficult time.
What fascinates me about your fans also is Obama. Obama's a fan. I mean, tell me, how did it happen? I mean, I sit there. It's so funny. Me and my wife were just talking about, how cool Obama is. I mean, I've been around for a lot of presidents. He's just a cool guy. Like he's like you want to sit around and have a drink with him because he's just cool. We were watching that Larry David show that he shows up on the first episode and he produces it. How did that come about? And as an artist, to have a president, okay, and a great president, what is that like for an artist?
I'll never know how he heard of Low Cut Connie, but I met him because after he put me on his playlist in 2015, then I got invited to the White House. It's an interesting story about how that happened, but I found myself at the White House
Tell
in the
me, tell me the
spring.
story. Tell me because that I love these kind of stories.
Oh, geez. Well, I saw a picture of Obama's hand. He was writing his playlist, his songs on a piece of paper on the Oval Office desk. And you could see under his hand low cut. You saw O cut Connie, you know? And more than anything, that was like an obsessive thing. I was like, wow, he took the time and he actually is writing the band name out. And I looked at who took the picture, and it was taken by Pete Souza, who was his photographer. And uh, by hook or by crook, I got a message to Pete thanking him. And I asked him if there was any way he could recommend that I could get a thank you letter to the president, because this was life changing for me. And he told me how to do it. And I ended up writing on a stationery thank you letter to President Obama. And it got to President Obama. And I invited Pete to photograph the band in DC. He did. And he said, I'd love to get you guys together for a picture. Let's make it happen. And so we made it happen. It took a bunch of months, but I got invited to lunch with Pete in the West Wing, and then he said, "My boss is ready to meet you." And we went upstairs and we waited, and he came out from his lunch. Adam, good to see you. When's your new album coming out? Oh, well, it's coming out next year. All right, you got to let me know. I like what you're doing. I like your style. Keep it up. So we get a picture, picture, couple kind words, and I was like, did that really happen? 'Cause Steve, I was still teaching. Like I still had my day job for up until 2015. And after that, I was like, I can do anything. I can
It's
do anything.
it's so funny that once again, as you said, you had fun that last weekend. Now, also other fans, and you mentioned earlier how you put yourself to a level of Prince, Bowie, well, Elton John, who we've seen go through metamorphoses through when I was Saturday Night All Right for Fighting to now. I mean, this thing and Springsteen are both fans. They listen to your music. How does that make you feel? And have you met either of them? Because I know Elton John
Both.
called you out on stage, like he mentioned you on stage. Or tell me about how do you know how that happened, or have you met them?
I've met both of them. I met Elton first. Elton John interviewed me on his radio show. He's a radio show called Rocket Hour. And he started playing me on his show, and then they asked to do an interview. I couldn't believe it was happening. And we talked on the phone, and you can hear the conversation on YouTube, actually. Um, and, he said he wanted to meet. And there was another crazy story about how I got backstage to meet him in Philly, and uh, he couldn't have been nicer to me. We hung out for like 15 minutes. I met Bernie Taupin, his lyricist. I met the whole band. He said, "You remind me of me young," and I got to thank him for teaching me everything I knew about the piano. And he said, "You're doing it. Make some noise out there, kid. Do it." And then he went on stage, and during the show, he dedicated a song to Low Cut Connie, told everybody to check out the band and buy my records. That's all on YouTube, which is stunning. I grew up with Elton John's music, and he's always been a hero of mine. As a performer, as a piano player, a vocalist, songwriter. And Bruce, I've met a few times. He's been really good to me. Um, how did he hear about the band? It's going back 9 years, 8 years, so I don't know. But I went to see his Broadway show, and um, the security came out and said, "You're Adam." He said, "Yes." They said he'd like to meet you after the show, and it was like I felt like the Pope was calling, you know. Um, he couldn't have been nicer. I hear you guys are doing great. I got to come see the show. You're from Philly, right? And then a few years later, 2021, I got a call, just an incredible phone call where they said Bruce and little Steven are doing this event and they'd like you to open for them um, in Asbury. And there's been other things since. I grew up in New Jersey in the 80s, so do the math. He was my guy, you know? So it's been pretty cool.
So the new album, you say, is a protest album. Explain that, because protest is always, we talk about Creedence Clearwater protest. How would you explain a protest album? Because people sometimes hear protest. It's so funny how language has changed. Protest used to be positive in my eyes. You're protesting something, but it can also be negative. But for you, how do you explain it to someone who might scare someone off going, oh, Low Cut Connie, it's a protest album? How do you explain a protest album to somebody?
Well, if you listen to Sly and the Family Stone or Creedence Clearwater Revival or Jimi Hendrix or Aretha Franklin Respect or even to some degree Born in the USA, um, these are protest records. They're records that are social commentary put to incredible catchy music. Sly and the Family Stone, Everyday People, uh, even Sly and the Family Stone, um, Dance to the Music. When you think about this country being segregated and him having a band that was black and white and men and women in the same group, and them going on Ed Sullivan show in the worst part of the civil rights movement and what that meant, you know, and what it meant for Aretha Franklin to sing about respect during a time when we were trying to get rid of segregation, and what that has subsequently meant for women's rights, gay rights, immigrant rights. I mean, that word respect continues to resonate. That song continues to resonate, but maybe people don't think of it as a protest song because it's a song that gets played at your wedding and bar mitzvahs, you know. Um, but songs can change the world. They can help us to see our society through a different lens. Bob Marley did that. He could change. He changed the world. Really, his music kind of continues to change the world and be a beacon for the underclasses in every country in the world, really, in every language. Get up, stand up, you know? Um, and so when people hear the phrase protest music, I think they might think that it'd be something boring, kind of intellectual and dour, um, like We Shall Overcome or something. But Born in the USA is a protest record. You could play it at your barbecue or your pool party, but it is a protest record. It's reflecting society back to us and commenting on it. And
Now,
that's
did
what
you
my record's trying to do.
did you start deciding to do a protest record after what happened with the Kennedy Center? Which, that is one thing that really shows an artist's backbone. Because so many people, I mean, I always joke around. I have friends who are comedy writers, and they're very anti-Republican or anti-Democrat. But I know if someone came up and said, "Hey, you want to write jokes for this politician, they'd be like, "Oh, fuck yeah, where do I sign up?" It's just that idea, like, oh, so what made you decide to do that? And did you think it would cause some damage to your career? Would it help your career, or you figured your fans wouldn't care, and if they were fans and they did care, fuck them?
All of the above. I thought that I would lose some people. I thought that I would some of my fans would be happy that I did that. I thought I pissed some people off. That wasn't the point. I just really didn't want to play there anymore. Um, we were supposed to do this performance at the Kennedy Center that was part of this social impact series that kind of like what I was talking about with Sly and the Family Stone is it was music that promotes positive social change. Think about that phrase, positive social change. And of course, in the description, it talked about elevating voices of diversity. My band is black and white. It's men and women. It's gay and straight. My fan base is all the above. And the Kennedy Center at the beginning of last year, the gay men's choir got canceled, and any mention of the word diversity was scrubbed. And I saw where it was going. I didn't want to be part of it. I didn't want to be associated with that. And what would that say to my band members? What would that say to my fans? I go out and I perform all over this country, red state, blue state. I do free concerts in the park. I have people from all walks of life that follow me, and they like that the fan base is so diverse. Music does that. It brings people together in interesting ways. I have fans who are Republican, very conservative, who have spoken to me and said to me, I don't agree with your politics, but I have a gay child, and I appreciate that you have been outspoken on their behalf. And I like that conversation. We have that open conversation. Um, I never thought I'd be an activist. I started this band for fun. But my audience and the people I meet on the road, so many people are suffering. People have less money than they used to. I have parents who talk to me that they're worried about their kids' future. How are they going to live? They're going to do poorer than we did. They're worried about tech and how it's influencing their kids. They're worried about guns. I hear it everywhere I go because I do free concerts with very little security all over this country. And it's a constant worry about the ability for anybody to walk in with a gun to these events. People say, I don't want to send my kid to school because I'm afraid what's going to happen at school. Uh, I talk to people who have lived in this country for 50 years. Well, I just did a show in Minneapolis, and these people came with their immigration papers in their pocket, and they said, we're afraid to leave the house. We've been here 50 years. Uh, is so many things that have come to my doorstep. Um, Close member of my family that went through a green card process. It's just I see through a different lens now, and I see how people's lives are affected by politics. And whether I want to just sing songs and be funny and crazy or not, that's what's on the minds of my audience. That's what they're thinking about when they come to see me. So I need to write songs that talk about that, because otherwise I'm not speaking to my audience. And that's what I always want to do. That's what Prince did. That's what Bob Dylan did. That's what David Bowie did. Like heroes of mine, they write songs or people say, you're speaking for me. Right. And so it has led me to this point where I've been thrust into this moment Um, Kind of like Jimmy Kimmel. I'm on Jimmy Kimmel's show next month, and I don't think he chose to be an activist. He was a comedian, but the moment found him and he's rising to it, and I'm trying to do the same thing.
Well, that's awesome. Just two quick questions before we go. One, how excited are you for this tour coming up? I mean, you're playing the Troubadour. Have you played the Troubadour before?
I have. It's an amazing place. It's always a smash. It's never lost on me how many legends have played there. And I see a picture. The dressing room is tiny, but you see a picture of Bob Marley laying on that couch or Elton John hanging out in that room. Um, Guns N' Roses. So it's pretty cool. We're doing the West Coast starting this weekend, Seattle all the way down to San Diego. And then this fall, we do we basically tattoo the Northeast, the Midwest, and the South, everything from Texas to Boston. And I just can't wait to do these shows. It's a powerful show, it's a funny show, it's a crazy show. And I hope that people watching this or hearing this will join us, give us a shot, come see one show. I promise you, you will be hooked.
One last question. Looking back at your career, and you've given me so much. I mean, you're very inspirational. You've really stuck it out, and you're. It's so funny that so many successful artists have been at the point where you were like, oh, let's just do this for fun. Like I've talked to actors who were walking out and had a chance reaction. But I always say you get that chance, but you also have the talent to back it up. Because if you get that chance and you suck, nothing's going to happen. Looking back at your career, what makes you very proud?
Uh, it's basically what you said, perseverance. I think back and there were songs I wrote that were really good that nobody heard. There were shows that I was putting on that nobody was hearing about. Um, as much as any artistic achievement I might have had, uh, that I'm proud of, the fact that I've stuck with it and kept it going, is the thing I'm proudest of. Because the music industry, the entertainment industry in general, is a difficult place to work, and it's gotten more difficult every year that I've been doing it. And I've just never say die. I've just really persistently kept at it. And here I am in my 15th, 16th year of this band, a band that a lot of people have not ever taken seriously. And we're doing Jimmy Kimmel show this year. We made it into the top 40 AAA charts on radio. Uh, we are selling out shows and getting really good reviews on the album and doing chats like this with you. And it's as much as of talent, it's about perseverance. And that's something I'm proud of.
Well, this has been awesome, Adam. I'm glad you came on. People, go to Low Cut Connie, the website, order that album. It's going to take a little while to get there, and that means it's a really good album. I listened to it. It's wonderful. Go to my website, coopertalk.net. You can see 1,072 episodes up there. You can email me at coopertalk.net. Remember, I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guests. Don't forget drinking water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you next time.